And we are pleased now to be joined by best-selling author Ken Follett, whose most recent book, Fall of Giants, it's book one of a century trilogy, comes out next Tuesday. Mr. Follett, you write a lot of historical fiction. What's your key to writing effective historical fiction?
Well, the thing is, a historical novel is really about the characters and their personal destinies. So the challenge is to weave those characters into the great sweep of historical events, the seismic historical events, wars and revolutions and so on. Weave the characters into that without actually writing a history book. We're still writing a novel which is about all the things that we like in novels. Is about love and marriage and enmity and revenge and hatred and making money and losing money and all those things that novels are always about.
And in fact, a lot of your thrillers that you're very well known for, 100 million books in print already, there's still a lot of historical reality in those books. How much research do you do? Where do you begin?
Well, I do a lot. I do a lot of research. I enjoy it. Most authors enjoy the research because it's easier than writing. But when I wrote, the first good book I wrote was Eye of the Needle, and it's a spy story set in World War II. And I found that doing the research, I kind of got into that stuff, and I was able to give the story a kind of texture, kind of feel for everyday life that I hadn't achieved in any of my previous books. And so really the research helped me enrich my books in a way that pleased the readers, and I've done it ever since.
In Pillars of the Earth, one of your best-selling historical novels, it's about the building of a cathedral. Why?
Well, a question that my publishers asked me at the time. They said, you know, you've had a lot of success, Ken, with the KGB and the Nazis and so on, and now you want to write a story about building a church. But the truth is that I felt right from the start that the story of the building of a cathedral could be a great popular novel. I didn't want to write a difficult novel. I didn't want to write the kind of novel where readers say, well, it was hard work, but it was worth it. My novels are not supposed to be hard work. They're supposed to be pleasure. But I felt a book like that could be written about all the trials and tribulations of building a cathedral in the Middle Ages. And as it turned out, I was right.
But what was the importance, especially to British history, of a cathedral building?
Well, it was like the building of the cathedral kind of drew in everybody in the society. And, you know, from the lowest level where they would get a job laboring on the site to the highest level where they would be arguing about where the cathedral should be sited. It was like the building of a cathedral was like a space shop. It was high-tech, absolutely leading-edge technology, and it drew everybody into a project, and it inspired people in the way that putting a man on the moon inspired us all. And so for the Middle Ages, it was such an exciting event. And I saw that. I saw that I could make an exciting novel out of it.
Well, Fall of Giants, which comes out Tuesday, begins in 1911, ends in about 1923. There's a patina of religion in this book as well. A lot of your books have a patina of religion. Why?
Well, I guess I was brought up in a very religious family. As a teenager, I then rejected my parents' religion, but it was an issue for me. Religion and morality were always issues in our family. There were things that people talked and argued about, and what was the right thing to do. And so I find that in fiction, I'm able to get drama out of that sort of thing. And in Fall of Giants, the character who is a boy at the beginning of the story, Billy Williams, who's 13 at the beginning of the story, the arguments that he has as a teenager with his father about religion are exactly the arguments that I had with my father when I was that age.
Ken Follett is our guest. We'll put the numbers up on the screen. 202 is the area code. 585-3885 for the East and Central time zones. 585-3886 for the Mountain and Pacific time zones. And we are live here at the National Book Festival in Washington, D.C. All-day coverage, and we're pleased to be joined to start off with Ken Follett. First call up for him is from Overland Park, Kansas. Please go ahead, Kansas.
Good morning, Ken.
Good morning.
I want to ask you about your book, Triple, that really fascinated me. I read it in the mid-'70s, And then about 5 years later, NBC News had an expose on that very subject. How were you so prophetic in describing that book? And I'll let you take it from there.
Well, you know, it was mainly guesswork. I read everything that there was to read about how the Israelis managed to get hold of the nuclear material that they needed to make nuclear weapons, but nobody knew the whole story, and so I made it up. The part of the novel that most of the novel is fiction, and it was me imagining how they might have done it, how they might have pulled that trick. And it's interesting that in later years it turned out that some of my guesses had actually been close to the truth. So close, in fact, that my agent had a kind of indirect approach from Israeli intelligence asking, where did Follett get this information? And my agent said, don't worry, you made it up.
Fort Lauderdale, good morning. You're on Book TV.
Morning, Mr. Follett. I want to
morning.
thank you for many hours of enjoyment, and you are, without a doubt, my favorite author. And
You're very kind.
the one question I have for you is, when are you going to? I would like to meet you, and when are you going to get down in this area so I can get my book signed?
Well, just as soon as I can is the answer to that. And but by the way, if I don't come to your neighborhood, you can send your book to me. Check my website. There's an address. Mail it to me, and I'll sign it. Be very happy to do that.
And that website is ken-follett.com, correct?
Yes.
Now, Mr. Follett, you're going to be at the Carter Library in Atlanta this next week. Why are you talking at the Carter Library?
I guess because they asked me, and it's a great venue, and I have a lot of readers in that neighborhood who would like to hear me talk.
But I'm just trying to get to the politics of it, going to the Carter Library.
Well, it's well known that I'm a supporter of the Labour Party in the UK, which is roughly equivalent to the Democrats in the United States, and my wife was for 13 years a member of Parliament for the Labour Party. So I'm left of centre. I'm happy to confess.
Are you a friend of President Carter's?
No, I've never met him. I would love to.
Have you met President Obama?
No.
Bill Clinton?
No, indeed, no.
Now, what about Tony Blair?
Oh, yes, you bet. Yes, I've known Tony Blair for many years, and of course was one of the people who campaigned for him to be leader of the Labour Party way back in the early 90s. We were never great friends personally, but I think the Brown-Blair government did wonderful things in the 13 years that we were in government in the UK, and I'm very proud of everything that my wife and Tony Blair and Gordon Brown did.
What about what are your views on the reception that Tony Blair's new book got in England, where he had to cancel some appearances?
Well, see, I'll tell you what went wrong. Of course, we all know that in the Iraq War, things did not go as people hoped they would go, but that's not the problem. The problem was that Tony didn't tell the truth about it, and that's fatal in politics. People hate to be lied to, and how many times have you heard a wronged wife say, I could forgive my husband for sleeping with his secretary, but I can't forgive the lies he told me. And that's how British people feel about Tony Blair.
Royal Oak, Michigan. You are on with author Ken Follett. Please go ahead with your question.
Yeah, thank you. It's a real honor to speak with you, Mr. Follett. Every one of your books has been a joy. Like in The Pillars of the Earth, I felt myself back there in the early and Middle Ages. And I just want to thank you for every enjoyment you've given me, and I will definitely go out and buy your new book. Thank you.
I hope you enjoy it. Thank you.
Well, here is a new book. Fall of Giants is the title of this one. Now, again, we mentioned that this begins in 1911, ends in 1923. What's significant about that period in English history?
Well, it's a huge turning point, and of course it's not just English history. It's American history and Russian history and German history.
World history.
It's world history. I'm sometimes a bit daunted by this because people talk about the great American novel, and I'm trying to write the great world novel, which is even more ambitious. there are three themes to Fall of Giants: the First World War, the Russian Revolution, and the struggle for women, for votes for women, the suffragettes.